You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are watching, listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, your host. Well, inflation, just the other day we got word, or actually today, Monday, April 3rd, OPEC is cutting back their supply by 1.6 million barrels per day. And we got the personal consumption expenditure number, which seems to be more important now than the inflation numbers. But I'll leave that for you to decide. But here to figure all this out is our good friend, Mark Falter. And incomehour.com is the site. Go over there. And also podcast and radio show. Mark, great to have you back on. So what are you making of these inflation numbers? Should we be cheering? Everything's fine. The problem's been solved. And our government, as always, comes to the rescue with well thought out and measured solutions that work for everybody, right?
No, the opposite. I'll tell you, I did a radio show, Kerry, this weekend, and I used an analogy, and I said, there's a new sheriff in town. That sheriff's name is inflation, and his deputy is Jerome Powell. This sheriff's in town for a while. He doesn't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. I think we're going to be battling this for quite some time. Last time we battled inflation this high, we battled it all the way from 1965 to 1982. And I think this is going to be a while, and I think that people ought to buckle in and get ready for a long haul. And unfortunately, in the process of doing this, well, and back to your point of the Fed saving the day, they have, quote unquote, tried to save the day with a soft landing 11 times, and they succeeded twice. One of those 2 times was Alan Greenspan, of which he wrote, just was quoted in January, saying that we're going into a recession. He says that's the only likely outcome we see out of this.
Mm-hmm. So, that's the soft landing. That's like when the elephant only jumps on you from 2 feet away instead of 10 feet, right?
Right. Yeah. So I think that's what we're dealing with. And, there's a few gaining stocks right now, but the stocks that are gaining are really only about 10 to 20 names, out of the S&P and the NASDAQ. It's really concentrated the mega cap tech names right now. So, like I said, I think we're dealing with some pressure from the Fed. And how many more times are they going to raise rates and what's going on there is really the question on most people's mind.
Good question. How many times are they going to raise rates? And can they really do anything about inflation other than to melt down the global economy and put hundreds of millions of people around the world out of work?
I tell you, well, I would, again, on that radio show that I just recorded this weekend, I stated that there was a quote by Jerome Powell, I probably got the note somewhere on this computer, where he basically said it's going to be a very long ride and it's going to be very bumpy. And so I think we're going to see this flat sideways type market for a while.
Inflation. Sounds like you're describing stagflation. We already got shrinkflation, where all the food manufacturers and others are just cutting the size of what they give you and leaving the price the same, like that's going to fool you, right?
Right. Well, I'll tell you something I talked about on my show. I think we're being bamboozled, if you want the truth. I think the Fed's got another ulterior plan, and I think their plan is to inflate this national deficit, quote unquote, sort of kind of away. I actually think they want things this high because it's going to help them with the national deficit, because we've got a problem on our hands. It's called the national deficit, and they're talking about raising the debt ceiling. So ultimately, I know it's people's like, what? How does that actually work? And they've done it before. And I think ultimately but meanwhile, they want to tell us remain calm and stay seated and fasten your seatbelt,
And comply and be a good serf, right?
Right.
Isn't that what it's about?
Don't come to the front of the plane, please.
Be a good citizen, and everything will work out fine for you, right?
Yeah, and one of the things I talk about a lot on my show is getting into income producing vehicles. So we don't have a lot of time to go through what does that exactly mean, but things that produce dividends and interest. Because at the end of the day, most people you talk to, most people I talk to, they need income. They've grown the money, they need income. And really at the end of the day, getting on the right side of this inflationary time frame, the raising of the rates by the Fed, you got to get on the right side of it. I think trying to make money in the stock market right now is getting on the wrong side of it. Case in point, go back to, and that's what I stated. I said, let's think about it. What's the best indicator of the future is the past. And wish we could tell the future, but the best indicator of the future is the past. Last time we were here during Jimmy Carter's time frame, inflation was at, over 12%. The money market rates were paying 14 and 15, and the stock market was only 7. And I think we're going to see kind of a dulled down rhyming of that. What did one of my analysts say? That history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme.
Yeah, that's what Mark Twain once said, and it's truer now than ever before. Hey, so inflation's baked in the cake. And as Will Rogers once said, invest in inflation. It's the only thing going up.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
So how do you invest in inflation?
Well, my opinion, I think what a person's got to do right now is, as I had a real quick story at a restaurant the other night doing a workshop, and I said, what was in your memory, they were all 65-year-old. I said, who was the worst fiscal president in our lifetime? And I said, you can't say the current administration. We don't want to get into an argument. And of course, he also said Jimmy Carter. And I said, the reason that you say that is because you were all 45 years old and working when Jimmy was in. If you were 65 and didn't know any money, you thought Jimmy was the greatest guy because you could invest in the money market, no risk at 12%. So the bottom line is people got to start looking that are retired, the people we talk to, into things that pay good interest, good dividends, and things that can pay them some fixed interest, because you can make 4 or 5% out there now, and versus the stock market's not even doing near that. Actually, the stock market's down, the S&P's down 10% for the last 12 months,
All right. So, but there are assets that presumably will do better because of inflation, right?
Correct. Right. Yeah. Things that are somewhat inflation proof. Consumer staples, things like that. We've got a few things in our holdings that are somewhat inflation proof. But really, like I said, also the things that pay good fixed dividends. Right now, that would be my play. I would suggest to retired people, at least right now, is at least while things are down, make sure you're getting income while they're down.
But if you get into fixed rate now and inflation increases, which seems like it's a good possibility, even a probability, right? Then you're going to lose more.
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Gold Terra Resource Corp is a gold exploration company that has assembled a highly prospective district-scale land position on the doorstep of the city of Yellowknife in Canada's Northwest Territories. Gold Terra is currently focused on expanding and delineating gold resources at the company's Yellowknife City Gold Project, with a goal of discovering over 5 million ounces. With ready access to infrastructure and multiple high-grade gold discoveries, Gold Terra is on track to re-establishing Yellowknife as one of the premier gold mining districts in Canada. Gold Terra trades as YGT in Toronto and YGTFF on the OTC. For more information, go to goldterracorp.com. That's goldterracorp.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network. The information you need to thrive now more than ever.
Well, you could actually, there's things that you could move around and get out of some of those things. But to be honest with you, a lot of our clients are calling us saying, hey, why don't I just park it into a CD right now and wait to see what the heck's going to go on in a year? And that's not too bad of an idea, even though it's, you're still losing money to inflation. But we haven't seen 4% CDs in forever.
All right. Well, that is true. It's been years and years. But like you said, these inflationary cycles can last quite a long time. Arguably, the inflationary cycle lasted really longer than 65 to 82. It was closer to 20 years that time, but they only figured it out a few years after it happened. Guns and butter, Vietnam, all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Right. It lasted a very long time, 3-4 different presidents. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was intractable. And to think the Fed can just raise rates and magic, it goes away, doesn't happen, right?
No, and that's the thing, Kerry. I think it's really good for your listeners and mine to understand, because I even found myself getting lulled into that, thinking that, hey, they're going to make a quick fix and we're going to be looking at 2% inflation in a year, 6 months. It ain't going to come that quick, And I think we better roll our sleeves up. We're going to be here for a while.
All right. What about precious metals? Is now the time?
I think it is not a bad time. We are bullish on both gold and silver, but I actually asked one of my analysts, what do you think? And I agree with him, and that is gold more than silver, but really either one. We're bullish on both right now.
Both. Yeah, I'm kind of more bullish on silver than gold for the simple reason that gold is approaching its all-time high, 2050 or 65, I think it was, 2065, whereas silver is trading still at 50% below its all-time high, less than 50%. So if things really take off, like we think they will, you could conceivably see silver way outperforming gold, right?
And another thing, too, is silver is an item that we use. In other words, we actually use it and discard it, where gold, not so much. And so that's kind of a good thing on the silver play. But either one, but I agree with you, silver is not a bad way to go.
Yeah, I agree with you that they could go either way. But, I feel that either one is going to protect you and do what you're looking for. However, outperform, I'm kind of looking more towards the shiny metal rather than the yellow metal. But what else do we got? You think that it's going to be the same with commodities, with base metals, platinum, palladium? Is everything just going to go skyrocketing?
I think it's going to go up, but I think if I were going to play the game, I would be more into silver. It's a lot less expensive to get into, for one, and there's a lot of different ways to access it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. Plus, it's an industrial metal. Its use base is on the rise. Applications. I mean, they're even using it in athletic socks to kill off bacteria. It's used in so many different things. All right.
Yeah. Your iPhone.
Yeah. Hey, your iPhone, your computer, any electronic item, there's a trace amount of silver. It's very hard to recycle that silver. Other metals, when metals trade for $1,000 an ounce or $2,000, way easier to extract them from electronics. When they trade for $20, $24 as of today, then the economic case for extraction from used or scrapped electronics, very difficult. For a while, they went around the world looking for X-rays that were, no longer in use, and then they'd melt them down, and there was a real silver scrap play there because X-rays, the negatives, had so much silver in them. But those days are gone. Hey, so what about in the real stock market? Oil? You think oil is on a bull?
I think oil could be a very good play, yes. And, as far as other areas, even with the bank failures and so forth like that, we are actually still buyers of bank stocks. There are certain banks that we are looking at because they really got beat down a heck of a lot. Like I said, with the main concentration right now of things that are going up are in the mega cap tech sectors right now.
Okay. All right. So what about tech? One of my guests recently said that the U.S. has become is becoming a high-tech banana republic.
I'll tell you what, I actually had some numbers shown to me this weekend. I was actually thinking about allocating a young person's account that doesn't need the money for about 6-7 years. I thought, if you just put them half in the S&P and half in the NASDAQ, but we actually found that if you go back on the numbers on that and you put them in a more diversified portfolio, it would actually equal it in overall return for the last 10 years with a lot smoother ride. But I cannot help to think, Kerry, here in the next year or so, if it wouldn't be a good idea to be putting some money into the NASDAQ, because, man, has it gotten beat down hard.
Yeah, well, just because something is low doesn't mean it can't go lower.
Yeah. Exhibit A, the NASDAQ. That's right.
Yeah, well, I've seen it, especially with mining stocks.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. All right. So, Mark, tell us the best way to connect with you on the web, social media, all that good stuff, and tell us about your show.
Yeah, we have a show every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays here in Kansas City. But the best way, a lot for your listeners, is just check us out on www.incomehour.com, and you can pick up any of our shows any time of day.
All right, man. I like it. I like what you're doing, like your work and your theories, and it makes a lot of sense. If you got a question for Mark, you can always send me an email, and we'll get you an answer, kl@kerrylutz.com. And don't forget, when you're in the show notes of this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com, just click the link. It'll take you right to Mark's site. And while you're there, sign up for a free newsletter. Mark, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Hey, thanks again, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.